Kia ora everyone, my name's Zach, I love rugby. Welcome back to Hakatime Rugby. Guys, France versus the Wallabies. Yes, I'm late to the party, but I thought there were some really interesting talking points that we need to cover both in terms of this match and the implications for the Rugby World Cup. I'm also going to drop a video later in the week, so make sure you stick around for that, and it'll be predicting the Rugby World Cup winner and some of the major performances that I expect to happen in the Rugby World Cup. A lot of the build-up, a lot of the pre-tournament games are now concluded, so we have so many data points to go off of, and I think I've got enough here to now determine who I think is going to win the Rugby World Cup. But let's get into this match, guys. Really interesting match. Obviously, a dominant performance and victory by France. Australia, though, and Eddie Jones touched on this, it hasn't been a great start to his tenure, going down the first 5 games. But they have identified a number of the micro battles within each game that they were able to win, able to give them some confidence, and able to step them forward. So that's great in theory. I mean, if you want to look at the game that way, that while you're not winning games, you're taking confidence out of certain areas and aspects of the games, that's fine. But ultimately for the Wallabies, to do well in any tournament, they have to start winning games. So I think, it's easy to take confidence, identify some improvements. Maybe that's media-related talk, but really the Wallabies now need to start putting it on the park. But let's get into some of the deeper areas of this game. Danty opens up the scoreboard with a fantastic try. Came off a short ball, option from Dupont. And Dupont, Danty, Penaud, Ramos all had fantastic matches in this game. Dupont, one of the rare occasions actually that the Australians allowed Dupont to run across the face of the defence. Tom Hooper not coming off the line fast enough, I thought, to shut down that option. And generally, Australia did a great job of shutting down Dupont as that sort of cross-face run across the defence. They were coming off with great line speed early and able to shut him down and forced him into other options that he needed to take in terms of cross-field kicks and other things. But this is one of those lapses in the defence that Tom Hooper wasn't able to come off the line fast enough, therefore gave Dupont opportunity to run across the face of the defence and found Danty with a nice short ball. And Danty had a significant amount of work to do, crashing over, running through Carter Gordon, who defensively had a fantastic game, I thought, really putting his shoulder in, showing physicality, proving why, from a defensive standpoint, he's been selected, in that he's able to give, great defensive ability there and dominate some of the collisions. Not in this case, and Danty's strong enough to get over the line. The 12th minute, Nawaqanitawase scores, and what I found interesting about this play is really the width of the field was exposed and the lack of defensive awareness from the French. They're not usually prone to this kind of defensive lapse, but it was mainly caused by Jalibert and Penaud both racing up on Carter Gordon, exposing the width of the field, drawing in the defence and allowing Nawaqanitawase all of that room on the left edge of the field and able to go in there relatively untouched there towards his try. Perhaps that's a case of cohesion around the defensive organisation. Now, Jalibert is obviously an experienced player, does sit behind Intermuck in terms of the pecking order, but has played many games here. So I just wonder if there is just a slight cohesion issue at this point in time between those players. I thought that was quite interesting anyway. The rest of the first half with 3 penalties, and this really underscored the differences between the Wallabies and the French, or a number of these top tier teams. When the French got into range, they took their opportunities, they scored points. When the Australians got into range, they were unable to take their opportunities and unable to score points. We mentioned about Carter Gordon kicking. This is the difference in Test match rugby, and this is Test match rugby. To win, you have to put pressure on, and you have to come away with points. If you're unable to do that, you are not going to win Test matches. It's as simple as that. So I just thought that was an interesting observation, very much a difference in the two teams. The other important factor, the French scrum came under all sorts of pressure in the first half. The Wallabies will be very happy with the performance of their front row. I thought Tupou had a fantastic game, although as he fatigued, he started to give away some lazy penalties there. But they'll be really happy with the performance of the scrums, and other teams will be looking at this French forwards performance and just thinking, we might have some opportunity there. I mean, if the Australians are able to get over the top of the French scrum, the breakdown I thought was super competitive, so there's opportunities there for some of those bigger teams to really expose the French in certain areas, or it certainly seemed like that to me. Much on, unfortunately, a couple of errors in the line out. The French crowd were just ripping into it. I mean, it explains why a lot of people are suggesting this might be one of the best World Cups ever, because of the support, the festivities, the crowd noise. It's all just playing a huge part. And that could be a factor come Rugby World Cup time, is if you're unable to hear the calls, you're under pressure, the crowd is into you, how much of that support will really benefit the French going into this Rugby World Cup? I think quite a lot. The French very much in control at halftime, as I mentioned, underscored by the differences in accumulating points versus missing your opportunities from the Wallabies side. Now we go into the second half. Vunivalu gets a yellow card at the 51st minute. I thought that was a really unlucky yellow card. He generally had a great game. Fantastic in the high ball, strong in the running as well, able to keep his feet, keep the ball moving forward in terms of their attack and cohesion. So he can be happy with his performance. Does it open up headaches for the Wallabies in terms of their wing selections? I don't think so, but it does add depth, which is a great thing to see. Now his work under the high ball, which we'll touch on later, the two hands above his head, taking some of those high balls. It's very much a rugby league inspired play. Kick high, allow the winger to do the work in the air. So I've been sort of going on about the Australian defensive attacking structure, I should say, or at least how they're sort of organising themselves. I think it's very much they're taking inspiration from a rugby league style of attack. That's another example where that crossfield kick, two hands in the air, just seems to be, an adopted play from rugby league, or at least very much similarities there. Now, in terms of other major points, the Penaud Try was interesting. We spoke about Dupont's influence. We spoke about the great work Australia were doing to shut him down, to stop him running across the face of the defense. But what he does so amazingly, there's two things that really stand out to me about Dupont and France in general. The first thing is he has every trick in the book, right? So you shut down his cross-field running, looking for options, and he can beat you with those cross-field kicks. So he just elected to start distributing the ball in different ways. He saw the opportunity there with Penaud. Crossfield kick was perfectly executed. He had some distance to cover there, and Penaud could just walk across the line after that. So fantastic work from Dupont and Penaud. We know how great they are. The other thing that this really underscores for me is that, to my eye, France are the only team that can still play well when they are put on the back foot defensively. So we spoke a little bit about the French forwards, and obviously the Australians having some success at set piece and at the breakdown. We know that games are dominated by the forwards at the moment. So when the forwards are going forward, winning the physical collisions and putting the backs on the front foot, it goes a long way to winning games. France are the only team whose team can be on the back foot, whose forwards can be on the back foot, and their backs are still able to execute under pressure and go forward. I think that's a really interesting observation, because we talk a lot about the importance of the forwards, the importance of go forward, the importance of winning the physical collision. But France can do that whether they win the physical collision or they don't. I think they're the only team in the world that can really still perform and win matches well when they are on the back foot in the forwards. Interesting observation. Let me know what you guys think about that one. I thought it's a huge in the context of this Rugby World Cup. On the other side, however, Fraser McReight scores a try which was very much set up by their ability to win the ball quickly and play the ball quickly into him, steaming onto the ball. So that's sort of the negative side of it, that, they might be able to perform when they're in attack and their forwards are going backwards. They're very much susceptible when they're in defence and the forwards are going forward. So another interesting observation there. Take from that what you will. And then the only other thing that I'll highlight here is Vunivalu's try. I thought he was very much deserving of that try. Just a great improvement in performance for him. Unlucky to get the yellow card, but great to come away with something like that try, which was really set up by his great ability to take the high ball. He used his body well, I think, to create the space. Two hands over the head, and an easy try. Very much rugby league-esque in my view. So where does this leave both teams? In terms of France, they'll be very happy with the hit out. They'll be happy with the confidence that they can get with these kinds of results. For Australia, as I mentioned, Eddie Jones is taking some consolation, confidence out of winning some of those micro battles. As I mentioned, I think that's all great, but it's time for them to start winning games. ultimately, I think that, if I can just touch on Eddie Jones some more, I think that he is a firebrand, obviously, in terms of his approach with the media, how he manages his teams, and what he expects from his teams. I just think he takes more of a high-risk option than he should at certain times. I look at this and I just think you could have benefited, say, a Carter Gordon from being underneath an experienced first five like a Quade Cooper. You probably didn't have to take as much risk as only selecting one specialist first five, putting all that responsibility on him. Obviously, they have an eye to the 2027 Rugby World Cup, but I think you could have got the same benefits for some of these younger guys of giving them exposure under a supported environment in the lead up to two Rugby World Cups. Just feels like they've put it all on 2027 as opposed to really coming in here and fixing some of those areas around taking points, scoring goals, etc. I'm going to leave it there. As I mentioned, guys, look out for the video later in the week about my predictions on this Rugby World Cup. Enjoy the rest of the rugby. It's almost time for Rugby World Cup, guys, so enjoy. See you soon.